was back in 2015. My little sister and I, along with a few of her friends, decided to go camping in a forest somewhere in Maine. I couldn't even tell you the name of the place now. She'd wanted me to come along because I'm older and a lot more experienced with camping than she or any of her friends were. Was it weird camping with a bunch of 14-year-old girls? Yeah, it definitely felt that way. I won't share my sister's name, but her friends were Casey, Barbara, and Lexi. My sister insisted I sleep in a separate tent from her and her friends, which honestly was fine by me, so we brought 2 tents. Besides that, I packed all the usual camping gear, food, water, tools, and in my case, a rifle. I never go camping without my gun. Call me paranoid, but there's just something about being deep in the woods at night that makes me want to know I can protect myself if things get weird. After a long day, I helped the girls pitch their tent first. They were giggling and messing around while I did most of the actual work. Once theirs was up, I started working on mine, alone. I could hear them all sitting inside their tent, their voices drifting through the thin nylon walls as they gossiped about whatever 14-year-old girls gossip about. When I finally got my tent set up, I stepped back for a second to listen. The faint laughter, whispers, the quiet rustle of leaves under a soft breeze. Then I put the fire out, watching the last flickers of orange sink into the darkness. Being the older brother, I felt this heavy sense of responsibility for my sister and her friends, so I dragged my tent as close to theirs as I could without being awkward about it. Inside my tent, I clicked on my little reading light, its glow casting a soft, lonely circle on the pages of the book I'd been working through. Outside, the forest settled into its deep, natural hush, but the girls kept talking. Their chatter seeped through the night air, breaking the silence I'd almost started to enjoy. At one point, their voices shifted. Giggles turned into high-pitched excitement as they started talking about some boy. Then, just like that, the topic switched, and I heard one of them mention Snapchat. I heard Casey mention that she didn't have Lexi on Snapchat and was asking for her username. I really didn't mean to eavesdrop, but they were talking loud enough that their voices carried clearly through the thin fabric of the tent, mixing with the quiet hum of the forest around us. Lexi rattled off her Snap handle, her voice casual, and for a while things were quiet again. About 5, maybe 10 minutes later, Lexi's voice came through, confused, saying that some random person had just added her on Snapchat. I lifted my head from my book, the paper crackling softly in the sudden stillness, my interest now caught by the change in her voice. The other girls immediately jumped in, telling Lexi to add the person back so they could see who it was. There was a quick shuffle of movement, the kind you hear when people are leaning over a screen together, followed by a beat of silence. Then one of them said that the person's Snapchat score was insanely low, only around 7. That's when I really started paying attention. The quiet of the woods outside suddenly feeling like it was pressing in closer, as if it too was listening. Apparently, whomever it was had sent a message that just said, "Hi, send me a pic." At that moment, the 4 of them erupted into a rush of whispers and soft giggles, their voices dropping so low that I couldn't quite catch what they were saying, but I could hear the excitement in the way they hissed words to each other. A few seconds later, they all burst into laughter, loud and sudden, and I could only guess they'd sent back some kind of silly or goofy picture. Then it went quiet again, the kind of quiet that makes your skin prickle, where the crackle of a distant branch or a rustle in the leaves sounds way too loud. And then, out of nowhere, I heard them all scream. The sound ripped through the night, cutting clean through the stillness in the forest's hum, sending a spike of cold down my spine. I grabbed my gun without thinking and shoved the flap of my tent aside, boots crunching on the dirt as I ran toward their tent, heart thumping hard enough to drown out every sound around me. My sister's voice came out in a high, terrified scream. "There's someone outside the tent!"
I fired the gun into the air 3 times, each shot tearing through the quiet night and echoing off the dark trees like sharp cracks of thunder. At the same time, I was yelling out into the woods, my voice raw as it bounced off the empty darkness, hoping to scare off whoever might have been out there. The moment the last echo faded, I crawled into their tent, the zipper scraping loudly in the tense silence. My sister immediately wrapped her arms around me, clutching me so tightly I could feel her shaking through her jacket. Of course, I asked them what happened, trying to sound calm, pretending like I hadn't already pieced together half of it from the conversation I'd overheard earlier. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide in the dim glow of the flashlight one of them was holding, shadows quivering across the nylon walls as they all started talking over each other, their voices shaking. They explained everything. Lexi had added the random person back on Snapchat, and just like I'd suspected, the person had sent her that weird message asking for a picture. The girls, thinking it was funny, sent back an ugly group shot of all of them together, scrunching up their faces and making goofy expressions for the camera. Then, the person sent back a photo in response. It was a selfie, they said, but not just any selfie. It was of an old, creepy-looking man, his face stretched into a wide, unnatural smile as he stared directly into the camera. Behind him, barely visible in the shadows, was the unmistakable shape of their tent, our tent, right there in the background. He was standing right in front of it when he took the photo. Hearing them describe it sent chills crawling down my spine, each word sinking in as I tried to process how close he must have been while we were sitting in the darkness, completely unaware. I felt a tight knot of fear clench in my gut, and despite trying to keep a brave face for them, I was shaken. They all begged me to sleep in the tent with them that night. The fear in their eyes was enough to make me agree without hesitation. So I stayed, sitting up most of the night with the gun beside me, listening to every single rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, every soft sigh of the wind as it moved through the trees outside, each sound sharper than it had ever felt before. The next morning, under a pale, washed-out sky, we didn't waste a second. We packed everything up in a tense, silent rush, our eyes constantly darting around the edges of the clearing as if expecting to see that smiling face appear from between the trees at any moment. We cut the trip short and made a beeline straight for the car, the forest feeling like it was pressing in on us as we left. What could have been a great weekend memory with my sister turned into the biggest nightmare of both of our lives. I just recently got into the whole Snapchat thing. My friends had been pushing me to get it, saying that everyone our age was already on there, and I was basically living under a rock without it. It didn't take me long to get the hang of it, honestly. Within a week, I had already hit a score of 1,000, snapping random moments throughout my day, sending goofy pictures, and keeping up with streaks. It was fun, and I was starting to get into the groove of it. One day while I was out shopping, I came across this pair of shoes that I knew one of my friends really liked. I snapped a picture of them right there in the store and sent it to her on Snapchat, expecting an excited reply. She opened it a few minutes later, but she didn't reply. I sent her a chat asking, "What do you think?" hoping it would nudge her to say something. This time she opened it much quicker, but again, nothing back. I frowned, feeling a little playful, and took a selfie with a sad face, captioning it, "What's up? Why aren't you answering?" before sending it over. She opened it immediately this time, but what she sent back in the chat made me pause. "Where are you?" she asked. I responded with, "Home." I saw her Bitmoji pop up in the chat, showing me she was still there, still watching the conversation. A moment later, she replied, "Where is home?" I stared at my phone, confused, my thumbs hovering over the screen. "What do you mean?" I typed back. Then she replied again, and I could feel my skin crawl as I read her next message. "What is your address?" It was in that moment that I knew something was off. The hairs on my neck prickled as I stared at the message. feeling a heavy unease start to settle in my stomach. Without replying, I closed the chat box, locked my phone, and got into my car, driving straight over to my friend's house. When she opened the door, the confusion on her face was immediate, and it only took a few seconds for her to explain everything. She had lost her phone the day before, and she hadn't been on Snapchat at all since then. We talked for a few minutes, her explaining how she lost it and that she hadn't been able to get a new one yet. I tried to process everything, and after making sure she was okay, I left to go back home. As I pulled up to my house, a low sense of paranoia was creeping in now, slithering beneath my skin as I turned off the engine and looked around slowly, checking the street and the spaces between houses, making sure I wasn't being followed. Both of my parents were out of town and my brother was out of state, leaving me alone in the house for the night. That night, as I was lying in bed, I was scrolling through Instagram and Snapchat one last time before trying to fall asleep. The glow of my phone screen was the only light in the room, and the quiet around me felt heavy. That's when it hit me. I could use Snap Map to see where my friend's Bitmoji was and maybe track down whoever had her phone. Feeling a surge of hope, I opened up Snap Map, letting it load as I lay there, my heart beating a little faster in the silence. Then, my blood ran cold. Her Bitmoji was right on top of mine, right on top of my house. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I dove out of bed, almost knocking over my lamp as I scrambled to shut it off, plunging my room into darkness. My hands were shaking as I rushed to the window, pulling the blinds down so fast they rattled against the glass. Suddenly, every creak in the house seemed louder, every shadow deeper. A wave of paranoia washed over me as I tried to remember if I had locked the front door or the back door. Had I checked the windows? Before I could even move to check, I heard it. A sound, faint but clear, coming from downstairs, directly below my room. A soft shuffle, a floorboard creaking under someone's weight. Someone was in the house. I froze, my breath caught in my throat, listening, the silence now broken only by the quiet sounds of movement below me. Slowly, I tiptoed to my bedroom door, pressing my ear against it to listen for any other sounds before quietly turning the lock, the soft click echoing like a gunshot in the darkness. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and dialed 911, whispering to the operator that I thought someone was in my house. She told me to stay on the line with her, her calm voice doing little to ease the panic rising in my chest as I stood there in the dark, trying to control my breathing while straining to hear any sounds from downstairs. When the police finally arrived, the flashing red and blue lights painting the walls of my room, they swept through the house, checking every room, every closet, every possible hiding spot. They found nothing. No one was in the house. It was just my paranoia, twisting every sound, every shadow into something it wasn't. But the fear didn't fully leave, even as they assured me the house was clear. We went into the backyard with flashlights, the grass damp underfoot, the cold air biting at my skin as we searched. That's when we found it. My friend's phone, screen still glowing softly, was hidden under a bush near the back fence. The battery was still at around 60%, meaning it hadn't been there for too long. The next day, I returned the phone to my friend, who was relieved to have it back, and my parents came home, filling the house with noise and life again. The fear slowly started to fade, replaced by the comfort of having people around. But one thing stuck with me, a lesson I wasn't going to forget anytime soon. From now on, I'm keeping my location private on Snapchat, and if you're smart, I'd recommend you do the same. This happened just a week ago, lasting up until a few days back. I had been going to this small local gym in my old town in New Jersey, a place called Black Bear Fitness. One day I had the misfortune of running into this skinny, awkward yet undeniably creepy-looking kid there. He was probably around 18, but he didn't look like he belonged in a gym at all. Like the kind of kid you'd see hunched over in the back of a classroom, not in a place where people were deadlifting and blasting music. I had my headphones in, working through my set, feeling the usual rhythm of the weights and my breathing. That's when I heard him saying something, but it came through as muffled noise under the thump of my playlist. It was already annoying. Anyone who goes to the gym knows there's an unspoken rule. Don't try to start a conversation with someone in the middle of their set. It's just common courtesy, and him ignoring that made me instantly irritated. I took my time finishing my reps, letting him stand there awkwardly, before finally pulling out my headphones and asking if he needed something.
That's when he started in with this weird act, claiming I looked familiar to him, trying to force this connection that clearly wasn't there. Right away, I could tell this kid was just making some pathetic attempt at making friends, using any excuse to talk. I told him, calmly but firmly, that I didn't know him, hoping he would get the hint and leave me alone. But the kid just wouldn't stop talking. I'll skip most of the back and forth, but it was a lot of small talk I didn't care about. Him asking me random questions while I stood there, wanting to get back to my workout. Then, out of nowhere, he actually asked me for my Instagram and Snapchat. It was weird, and to this day, I don't even know why, but I gave them to him. Instead of saying something like, "Buddy, I'm trying to work out," or "I don't have social media," I just rattled them off without thinking. After I handed over my Snapchat and Instagram, I did try to push things back to normal, kind of urging him to let me get back to my workout. He seemed to finally get the message, nodding awkwardly before turning to leave.
Not without saying bye 3 separate times, though, each one softer than the last, like he didn't want to let the moment end before he finally walked away. That night, my phone buzzed with a Snap notification that read, "From Sean." I immediately sighed, running a hand down my face, muttering, "Oh no," under my breath, already wondering why the hell this kid would feel the need to snap me after just meeting at the gym. I opened the Snap, and the screen lit up with his face, way too close to the camera. His features almost distorted by how near he was. He was in this creepy, weird pose, his head resting on his hand, and a half-smile twisting on his lips like he was trying too hard to look casual, but ended up looking unsettling instead. The text over the picture simply said, "Hey," with 2 Y's. I stared at it for a moment, then muttered, "What the fuck?" under my breath. For the record, I'm a guy, which made this whole thing feel even weirder, the discomfort sitting heavy in my chest as I tried to process why this kid thought it was okay to send me something like that after one forced conversation. My thought process was clear. I'd had enough of this loser already. I wasn't going to entertain this, and I wasn't going to let it become a thing. I decided right then that I was going to remove him, make it crystal clear I didn't want to talk, and if I saw him at the gym again, I'd ignore him. And so I did it. I removed him from my Snapchat minutes after he sent that snap, my thumb hovering over the Remove Friend button for a second before tapping it with finality. But not even a minute later, my phone buzzed again. Another notification popped up saying, "Snapchat from Sean." I just stared at the screen, the glow of it lighting up the dark room, my stomach sinking a bit. I waited a few minutes before opening it, a tense silence filling the space around me. This one was even creepier. Now the kid was sitting up on his bed, the angle of the camera showing the messy room behind him, shadows cast by the dim lamp beside him. His expression was different this time. No smile, just a wide-eyed, surprised look, tinged with something like anger. His lips pressed into a thin line. The text over the image simply read, "Why did you remove me?" A chill ran down my spine, the discomfort morphing into something sharper, like a warning bell ringing in the back of my mind. I didn't waste any more time. I went as far as to block him completely, making sure he couldn't snap me, couldn't message me, couldn't see anything about me anymore. I hit the block button and felt a rush of relief wash over me, like I was finally cutting off something that was trying to latch onto me. And that was that. I tossed my phone onto the desk, letting it clatter against the wood, and let out a long sigh, sinking back into my chair, grateful that it was over. Half an hour later, my phone went off again with a notification. "Sean added you as a friend." Then, immediately after, another one. Snapchat from Sean. My stomach dropped. He had actually made a new account. I opened the snap and my heart felt like it stopped mid-beat. It was a picture of my front lawn. The dark outline of the bushes, the faint glow from the street lights, the walkway leading up to my door. All of it was right there on my screen, a photo taken from just outside my house.
The text over it read, "Answer me, bitch." The first thought that shot through my mind was, how the hell did he find my address? Then it hit me. Snapchat's new map feature, the one that lets you see exactly where your friends are if you don't have it turned off. A cold sweat broke out across my back as I realized what that meant. Somehow I found the nerve to walk over to my window and slowly lift the corner of the blinds to peek outside. My eyes scanned the front yard, searching the shadows, the quiet of the night pressing down on me, every small sound amplified in the dark. It was clear out there. No movement, no figure standing in the yard. I shut the window and yanked the blinds closed, backing away, my mind racing as I started seriously considering calling 911. My hand hovered over my phone, debating if I was overreacting, if maybe he had just driven by, taken a picture, and left. That's when I heard it. A soft, deliberate tapping against the window. My breath caught in my throat as I stood frozen for a moment, the taps continuing, slow and mocking, sending a wave of cold fear flooding through me.
I took a deep breath, forcing down the panic, and with one swift motion, I yanked up the blinds and threw open the window at the same time. He was right there. Before he could react, I reached out, grabbing him by the neck, pulling him through the window and into my room, the sound of his body hitting the floor muffled by the carpet. I didn't even think. I punched him in the face, once, twice, 3 times, the fear and anger boiling over until he was out cold on the floor, his head lolling to the side. Now, I called 911. By the time the cops arrived, he was awake again, spitting blood, cursing me out, his eyes wild and full of hate as he screamed that he'd be back, that he was going to kill me.
The cops heard every word, standing there as witnesses while he raged, and I didn't even have to say much. The kid was an idiot, digging his own grave with every threat that left his mouth. Luckily, the timing of all this worked out in a strange way because I had just moved out of state a couple of days later, putting hundreds of miles between me and that psycho. The only thing that still bothers me, though, the one thing that keeps me up sometimes when I get a notification late at night, is that I really don't want to have to make a new Snapchat account. Because now, anytime someone new adds me on the app, I'll never know for sure if it's secretly that Sean kid, trying to get back into my life, waiting to send me another snap from the dark.